Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into something loads of us have grappled with after a breakup. Should you reach out to your ex? It's a tricky one, isn't it? The advice out there is all over the place.
It really is. You see these articles saying, go completely radio silent, and then others giving you like exact scripts for what to text.
Right.
So our mission in this deep dive is to try and cut through some of that confusion. We've looked at expert opinions, real stories, to help you figure out what you should actually consider before hitting send.
Exactly. We're not aiming for a simple yes or no. I mean, let's be real, it's almost never that simple.
Mhm.
Our goal is more about giving you a framework,
Right.
so you can make a call based on your specific situation. We've seen cautious takes, more direct strategies, but a big theme, understanding why. Why do you even want to reach out?
And that's absolutely the starting point. Honest self-reflection. Before you even think about contacting them, you got to look inwards. Like, have you really given yourself time to process it all, to grieve?
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. It's easy to think you're fine, keep busy.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff we read suggests reaching out too soon can just be, well, avoiding the tough feelings.
Precisely. It's like using contact as an escape route from the grief.
Hmm.
And that unprocessed grief, it doesn't just vanish. It can pop up later. If you reconnect too fast, maybe as anxiety, or you find yourself getting irritable again, or just bored. Like the old problems are still there, just in a new wrapper.
So deal with the grief first. Otherwise, you're kind of setting yourself up for the past to mess things up again.
Definitely. You need to get to a place where you feel okay, genuinely okay on your own,
Right.
so that if you decide to reconnect, it's a choice. It's coming from a place of wanting something positive, not just needing to fill that gap or stop feeling bad.
It's about strength versus neediness, basically.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Okay.
Approaching them from self-respect, not desperation. And beyond just feeling okay, you have to be honest about the old patterns. Because unfortunately, reconnecting can just flip that switch right back on.
Which leads to a big question the sources raise for the listener, for you. What specific habits, what behaviors are you really committed to changing this time?
Yeah.
Because if you haven't thought about that, haven't made a real commitment to not repeating those mistakes, well, you're probably just going to fall back into the same old mess.
Exactly. What unhealthy patterns are you determined to break? That self-awareness, that commitment to growth, it's fundamental.
Okay.
So once you've done that internal check-in, the next big step is understanding why. Why the urge? Is it genuinely about moving towards something better, like building on growth? Or is it more about moving away from bad feelings, loneliness, sadness, fear?
That moving towards versus moving away framework really resonates. Because if it's mostly about escaping the negative stuff, well, the sources seem pretty clear. Probably not the right time or the right reason to reach out.
Yeah, it's like taking a detour instead of heading towards a healthy destination.
Mm-hmm.
And think about triggers. Seeing them pop up on social media, maybe getting rejected by someone new, or just a wave of loneliness hits.
Right.
Those things can make you want to reach out. But often, it's signaling a deeper need in you, not necessarily a genuine wish to reconnect with that specific person.
It's almost like a reflex, isn't it? Feel bad, reach for the familiar.
Exactly. A knee-jerk reaction.
And the sources also mentioned validation. Sometimes it's less about them and more about needing someone, anyone, to say, you're okay, especially if your self-esteem took a hit.
That's a huge one. Am I seeking validation or am I seeking genuine reconnection? You have to ask yourself that.
Mm-hmm.
And don't confuse that need for validation with a real desire to rebuild. Then there's the hope for reconciliation. Wondering maybe there's still a chance.
Yeah, the what if.
But you got to question that hope. Is it realistic? Or is it just wishful thinking, kind of denying the reality of the situation?
Because that hope can keep you stuck sometimes, right? Stop you from actually moving on.
Totally. And then there's the unresolved stuff. Wanting to fix the past, get closure.
Which you can't really do by just reaching out now.
Exactly. You have to see them for who they are now, not who they were. People change. The whole dynamic is different. Plus, sometimes it's unconscious you're drawn back to recreate familiar patterns, even the negative ones.
Right, that weird comfort in the familiar, even if it wasn't good for you.
Familiarity isn't the same as healthy. Remember that.
Okay, so after all that soul searching, if someone's still thinking about it, are there definite times when the advice is just don't do it, red flags?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
If feelings are still really raw, really strong, and unresolved, what one source called unfinished business, that's a pretty clear sign to hold off.
Makes sense.
Also, if you see a pattern in yourself, like you always pull away when things get close, and then you start chasing past partners, you need to look at that pattern first.
So unresolved feelings, unhealthy personal patterns, big reasons to pause.
Definitely. What else? Irresponsible behavior from the ex,
Okay.
especially if it hurt other people. You got to protect yourself and others. And crucially, if they consistently couldn't or wouldn't take responsibility for their part in things before, trying to have a productive chat now is, well, likely pointless.
Yeah, if they can't own their stuff, how can things actually change?
Exactly. Protect yourself from that lack of accountability.
Right.
And maybe the biggest red flag of all. If you feel like you need to prove yourself to them, like you have to earn their love back,
Oh,
if you feel that, one source just flat out said, walk away. Your worth isn't up for debate with an ex.
wow. Okay. Your value isn't conditional on them.
Not at all. So let's say someone has done the hard work, the self-assessment, and they still feel reaching out might be right for them. How should they actually go about it?
Okay, yeah. The first thing, and this came up everywhere we looked, be ready for anything, seriously. No guarantees.
No.
They might be thrilled, they might be totally or yeah, they might just shut you down completely. You have to go in knowing any of those could happen and be prepared to be okay regardless.
That's so important. Having that internal sense of I'll be okay no matter what is actually a huge source of strength. And if they do say no or I don't want to reconnect, you absolutely have to respect that, even if it stings like hell. Pushing past that almost never ends well.
Respect their boundary. Got it.
Yeah.
And if they do talk, what then?
Then the advice is be ready to listen. Like really listen. Not just waiting for your turn to jump in and defend yourself or argue about the past.
Right, it's not about winning.
No.
Yeah.
It's about understanding their viewpoint now. Try not to interrupt. Don't dismiss what they're saying. Avoid the you always or you never stuff.
The blame game.
Exactly. Try and see it from their side. And accept you can't change how they remember things. Agreeing to disagree. Totally fine.
Okay. And how you actually say things. Any tips there?
I statements. Consistently. Frame it around your feelings, your experience. Like, I've been doing some thinking about us. Instead of, you never even tried to call me.
Less defensive that way.
Much less. It shifts focus from blaming them to sharing your own perspective. It's just more constructive.
Okay. Now, one source we looked at had a very strong opinion about contacting an ex who dumped you. The title was basically, hell no. What was the main argument against reaching out if you were the one broken up with?
Well, the core idea, and it's pretty compelling, is that reaching out when you've been dumped usually just pushes them further away.
Oh, interesting. Counterintuitive, maybe.
Yeah, but the reasoning makes sense. First, it pulls your focus away from what you should be doing, healing, reflecting, growing, figuring out your side of things. Instead, you get hyper-focused on them, which often just makes you feel more panicky and needy.
Right. Focus on yourself, not them, if you are dumped.
Exactly. And that neediness, as we said, isn't attractive. Second big point, it messes with your healing.
How so?
Every text, every call, it can just rip open the wound again, pulls you right back into the breakup drama, makes it way harder to find closure and peace. You get stuck.
Like picking at a scab. Makes sense. It just prolongs it. And it also risks creating emotional dependency.
Ah, right. Relying on them for validation or comfort when they're the one who left.
Exactly. Which stops you from building your own coping skills, your own independence, which you desperately need to recover properly.
Okay. And then there's the perception issue. The source wasn't shy about this one.
No, not at all. Basically, it argued that constantly reaching out after being dumped can just look, well, a bit pathetic. Annoying, predictable.
Ouch.
Yeah. The thinking is, it doesn't make them miss you or wonder about you. If anything, it confirms their decision. It can also suggest you don't have much self-respect or, like, nothing else going on in your life.
That's harsh, but yeah, I can see how it could be perceived that way. What about the impact on the ex?
Well, if someone ended it and asked for space, constantly reaching out feels kind of selfish, doesn't it? Disrespectful, like you're ignoring their decision, making it all about your needs, not theirs. It invalidates their feelings.
And things can get messy communication-wise too, right? Especially over text. Totally. Emotions are high, things get misinterpreted easily, tone gets lost in text. It just adds more potential for conflict to an already painful situation.
Right. And for some relationships, maybe too much chasing was the problem to begin with.
That's another point the source made. If constantly needing closeness or reassurance was part of why things ended, reaching out just continues that exact same pattern they want to distance from.
Reinforcing the problem, not fixing it.
Exactly. And lastly, just contacting them soon after they ended it might simply upset them, bring back all the negative feelings tied to the breakup, make them want to pull away even more.
Okay, so those are some pretty solid arguments against reaching out if you were dumped. So why do some experts advise doing it?
Well, one perspective we encountered suggests it's partly because, well, it's what people want to hear when they're hurting.
Ah, catering to the audience.
Kind of. The source argued that when someone's in deep emotional pain, they're driven by emotion, right?
Right.
And they might resist uncomfortable truths. Like maybe the chances of getting back together healthily are actually pretty low. Or maybe they need to work on their own stuff, self-esteem, emotional issues, before any reconnection is a good idea.
And those aren't exactly popular messages. It's probably not going to work out. Doesn't sell many books, I guess.
Right. So advice like reach out in 30 days or fight for your relationship can feel more hopeful, more appealing, and frankly, sell better. Now, obviously, experts can have different valid takes, but the key thing for you, the listener, is to be critical. Ask yourself, what's the expert's angle here? Does this generic advice really fit my specific unique situation? Or is it just telling me what feels good right now?
Be a savvy consumer of advice.
Yeah.
Got it. So if you were dumped, what's the recommended alternative to reaching out?
The advice was pretty blunt. Walk away. Don't look back. Focus all that energy on you healing, improving yourself, living your life as if they're not coming back. The only time revisiting it might make sense, according to this view, is if things happen organically. Like they reach out first, or you have unavoidable reasons to interact, or a chance meeting sparks something mutual.
And if that does happen, that organic reconnection.
Then the advice is try to set up a date, something in person, fairly quickly, to see if there's actually potential there, if it's just, goes to the past.
Gauge the reality early. Okay, now let's flip it. Let's say you decide to break no contact. One source told a story about someone's fantasy reunion versus the messy reality. What was the takeaway there?
Oh yeah, that story really drove home how our expectations, that perfect movie scene reunion in our heads, rarely match the awkward, complicated reality of actually talking to an ex again.
Right. Life isn't a rom-com script.
Not usually. And the storyteller realized they totally skipped a crucial question. Would getting back together actually be healthy for them? They were so focused on the getting back part, they ignored all the red flags from before.
So, key insight. Don't let the desire to reconnect blind you to why it ended. And manage those expectations about how it'll go.
Absolutely. Now, crafting that first text after no contact. What's the best approach, generally?
The advice leans towards something that gives a little glimpse of who you are now, maybe what you want, but without pressure. Confident, not needy. Grown, not desperate.
Okay. But there are definitely times when texting is a hard no, right?
Oh, for sure. If there is any abuse, physical, emotional, psychological, don't text. Full stop. Same for relationships that were just deeply toxic. And if you suspect narcissism or serious manipulation, extended no contact, maybe even dating other people first, is strongly recommended for your own safety.
Right. Protect yourself first. But for other situations, even if you do decide to reach out eventually,
Right.
healing first.
Always. Heal. Do the self-analysis before you type anything. We saw an example from a reader, Samantha Jacob, who sent an email that worked well. What made it effective?
It was really honest. She owned her part in things after the breakup. She validated his decision to end. It was right. And she said she missed the connection, but without demanding anything or asking to get back together.
So honesty, taking responsibility, low pressure.
Exactly. It showed self-awareness, acceptance. It didn't feel like an attack or a demand. And that honesty, confidence, and tact, it sets a much better foundation if you do start talking again.
And what should the realistic goal of that first text be?
Realistically, just to open the possibility of reconnecting somehow, maybe friends, maybe more eventually. But it's not about manipulating them or controlling the outcome, just opening a door.
Okay. Now, there are loads of different opinions on texting after no contact, especially if you were dumped. What are some of those conflicting views?
Well, you hear the never text first if you were dumped rule a lot.
Yeah.
The idea is they left, so they should reach out if they regret it. Texting first shows weakness. But, as one source pointed out, life isn't always that neat. Sticking rigidly to that rule might stop you from getting closure. They gave an example, David B., who reached out, found out she'd moved on, and that actually helped him move on too.
Interesting. What about the just wait, your ex will always come back advice?
Yeah, that one can be really unhelpful. Our source strongly advised against it. It just fosters denial, stops you healing, Sure, some exes get back together maybe 30% according to one stat we saw,
Yeah.
but it's far from guaranteed, and passively waiting, that just keeps you stuck.
Don't put your life on hold based on maybe. Okay. What about the worry of falling back into old bad patterns?
That's a really valid concern,
Yeah.
especially, again, in abusive or toxic situations.
Yeah.
Definitely avoid contact there. But the counter is, if you have healed, if you have the right mindset, reaching out can bring clarity, whether you get back together or just understand better why it didn't work.
So taking all that in, what's the general recommendation?
It kind of boils down to this. If you've healed, you've got the right mindset, not desperate, realistic, and you genuinely see potential for something healthier this time, then maybe consider it. But use common sense. Focus on what you control, your actions, your attitude.
Right, what you bring to the table. And the downsides. What are the risks of texting?
Well, the big fear is seeming needy, but again, you can't control how they interpret things. The bigger risk, really, is the potential for more pain if you're not healed enough. If rejection would crush you right now, probably best to wait, extend no contact.
Protect yourself if you're still vulnerable. Makes sense. So when is the right time? Is there a magic number? 30 days? 60 days?
Nah, it's not about a calendar. It's about your internal state. Are you genuinely past the needy, desperate stage? Could you handle rejection? Okay. Have you got that abundance mindset, knowing there's just one option, not your only shot at happiness?
Right.
That healing takes as long as it takes. Could be weeks, could be months. That always contact after 30 days rule.
Yeah.
Too rigid. And waiting for a sign, that's still waiting. And you can easily misread things.
And the fear of waiting too long, they'll move on.
Focus on your healing timeline, not trying to race theirs. Get yourself right first.
Okay. How do you get to that healthier mindset?
Honesty with yourself, building genuine confidence, being tactful, plus all the basics, self-care, self-improvement, actually learning from the past relationship. One study mentioned people often feel noticeably better around the 3-week mark, which is interesting.
So focus on growth. And when you are ready, what's the best way to actually reach out? Text, call, email.
Text or email is usually better for the first contact, gives them space to process before replying, less pressure than a sudden call.
Okay, so the message itself, what do you actually say? We talked about a few types.
Yeah, the one that got highlighted as often effective was the elephant in the room text.
Right. Acknowledge the breakup, maybe your part, accept it, say you missed the connection, but no demands.
Exactly. Like Samantha Jacobs' email. It owns stuff, it's honest, it doesn't pressure them, takes responsibility.
What about the memory text? Like, hey, remember that funny time when... Pros and cons.
Pro. It's light, can trigger good feelings. Con. If things ended badly, it might feel like you're ignoring the serious stuff. Could seem fake or like you haven't processed things.
Okay. And the super simple test the waters text. Just, hey, how are you?
Pro. Simple, leaves the ball in their court. No pressure. Con. It's vague, easy to misinterpret. And if they don't reply, kind of awkward, leaves you hanging.
Right. And finally, the direct, I want to get back together approach. Usually not recommended first up.
Generally, no. It can feel really pressured, especially if you were needy before. Even saying, we need to talk about the relationship can sound like you're pushing for reconciliation immediately. Better to be a bit skeptical about getting back together initially, right? You need to see if things are actually different now.
Assess compatibility again. Don't just assume. Okay. So you send the text, then comes the waiting. What should you expect?
Yeah, nerves are normal. Overthinking happens. But if you've got that healthy mindset, it shouldn't be agonizing. Responses can vary wildly, though. Could be positive, enthusiastic, maybe suggesting a call. Could be neutral, cautious, maybe needing more time. Could be angry or hostile, suggest unresolved issues. Maybe ask briefly why they're angry, but if they shut down, back to no contact.
Okay.
Could be cold or dismissive. Short replies, no interest. Best to just end it, give space. Could be delayed, give it up to a week maybe. Or no reply at all.
And if there's no reply...
You got to accept it might be about them, not you.
Yeah.
Focus on moving on yourself. Don't torture yourself over the silence.
Be prepared for anything. Okay. And if you do start talking again, how do you move forward without falling into old traps?
Go slow. Text, maybe calls, then maybe a casual meetup. Be friendly, but not needy. Be open to talking about the past calmly, but don't push reconciliation. Keep that skepticism. Have things really changed? Has there been growth on both sides? Watch out for red flags reappearing.
Well, I commit flags.
Lack of responsibility, constant blaming, manipulation, dishonesty, them just dragging you along without commitment. If that stuff shows up again, be wary.
Right. Don't ignore the warning signs just because you want it to work. And what if? What if it becomes clear it's not going to work out, even after talking?
Then yeah, it's going to hurt. Allow yourself to feel sad, disappointed. Use your support system, friends, family. Remember, this doesn't define your worth.
Hmm.
Maybe communicate any lingering hope you had, honestly, but without neediness. Then aim to move forward knowing you tried. Keep leaning on support. Think about dating again when you're ready. And if you're really stuck, therapy or a breakup coach can be super helpful.
Okay. It's okay if it doesn't work out. Focus on moving forward. So, wrapping up this deep dive on contacting an ex, what's the big takeaway?
Honestly, it's that this is deeply personal. It takes real self-assessment, realistic expectations, and thinking hard about your motives and the possible outcomes. There's no magic bullet, no single right answer for everyone.
Yeah. Prioritize your well-being. Approach it from a place of strength and self-awareness, whatever you decide.
Exactly. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening to mull over. What does a truly fulfilling, healthy relationship look like to you right now, separate from this specific past person?
Hmm.
Does reaching out actually align with building that future? Or does it risk keeping you tied to a past that, well, ended for a reason? That's something only you can really answer.